Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Okay, hey everyone, it's Goud. I am your host of the Goud Crowd, and I'm here. Now let me just figure out how to make this other one go away. I am doing this on my own today, so this may or may not work. Right now, I cannot figure out how to turn that off. Oh, here, I think this is what I do. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're gonna start. Sorry about that. Mr. Producer is off on a special mission. And so I'm on my own. So the production may be a little bit like, but hopefully you'll be patient and we'll get through this. It should be kind of fun. So we'll talk about some congressional issues, but I thought we'll start with local news. Today, Kathleen Anderson, so she's running for county council in Salt Lake. She just posted on X that the county council members are planning to increase their salaries as soon as the election is over. So let me share this with you. And what she said is, let me just add, this is why it's good to actually have somebody like Carlos on the council. It's really interesting. He's honestly he's turned out to be the most conservative one there. So I give him a lot of props for that. And he is a good source of information, because a lot of times what happens is the county council will discuss things in the background and they won't let us know that they're discussing them. But here you have an example where she has actually gotten information from Carlos. They are planning to increase their salaries from $48,000 to $50,000 a year to $180,000. Like, whoa. And by the way, it's a part-time job. So they're planning on turning this into a salary that exceeds most full-time people's salaries. I mean, this should be big news in Salt Lake County, and it should impact your vote. So if you are now looking to go and see who to vote for example, a nominee for county council. So on the Republican side, I think kind of the big ones are the at-large county council seat, and that's got Lori Stringham and Kathleen Anderson running. And Lori is the current incumbent. And then we've got the County Council District 5, that's out where I live. So Riverton, Harriman, Bluffdale, all this area. And that's got Chris Null. And then there's a woman running, I can't remember her name. It's an open seat though. And so I think this is a question you need to ask all of them. I do want to say one thing. I think they might make $80,000 a year for their part-time job, but whatever it is, they get the salary, they get health insurance. I mean, it's a cushy job for a part-time job, and there is under no circumstances do they need a raise. And if they're supposed to also have a job on the side or a business. It's not supposed to be a full-time job. We don't need a full-time county council. As many of you know, their actual jurisdiction is less than 10,000 people. Everything that they do, or most of what they do, is just extras that they're not required to do by statute. So they're required to do the jail. They're required to have a sheriff, although most of the county, I think all of the county will basically turn into cities in the next couple of years. So I'm not sure if the sheriff's office needs to be as big as it is. They have to have the district attorney, have to have the county clerk. They have those types of jobs, but things like the libraries, things like the senior centers, all these things are kind of butter. They're butter and you don't need them. So a lot of what they're doing is just to expand their footprint so that they can then justify having higher salaries. The other thing they do is they have a whole planning department, and it spends, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it spends a good amount of money, and it's actually not necessary because it's duplicative of services, planning services provided both at the city level, and then also we have regional planning like the Wasatch Front Regional Council. And there's another one too, but they all kind of do similar things. So the county actually should cut its budget, and frankly, it should actually cut the salaries of the elected officials. I don't think they're doing a good job. I can't really say that it's gotten better since I moved here in 2020. Plus, they just increased our property taxes by 15%. So if they're not going to increase their own salaries like that, just wait until they start increasing the county employee salaries, and then as that flows through to more tax increases. I mean, I'm very nervous about what's going to happen in November, if I'm honest with you, mainly because I think we're heading into a really bad midterm election. And so we may end up with a majority Democrat county council. And at that point, I would just expect big tax increases, high crime policies, all of the bad things that come from running or living in Democrat-run areas. It's going to come here even worse than it already is. And I think most of you who live here know it's already pretty bad if you really look at it, considering that we are in a red state. So many of the cities, even in Salt Lake County, are run by Republicans. So when you come down to Riverton, it's run by Republicans, Harriman, Bluffdale, I think South Jordan to a certain extent. But all of those county policies, they bleed into the quality of life here, and they make it worse. And so I will say, I don't think November is looking very good. So I'm not going to sound hopeful on this. Okay. Here's a little video I thought I'd play. This woman is, I'm finding her kind of, it's like, this is interesting. She shows up, her name's Realtor Caitlin. She now shows up in my Instagram feed, but I think it's because I saw this video where she endorsed Nate Bluen. I did think, and she does this is like her personality in the video.
Because I didn't want to seem so eager, but I am eager.
I don't know how to rewind. Okay.
So I said, sure, I think I can make that work. And then I hopped in my vehicle that is unfortunately riddled with the evidence that I am a mother, and I drove to their house. And I walked in and I said, this is a nice house. And they said, yes, we know. What's your plan for selling it? And I said, maybe we get a sign. And I like my sign. It even lights up. Despite my sign being revered mostly by me, it didn't seem right for this house to have this sign. So I messaged a sculptor that does amazing work and moved to Utah for the paragliding, and I said, hey, I have a crazy idea. Next thing you know, he's installing a custom piece in the yard of the house that's for sale in the avenues, and that is step 1 of my marketing plan checked off the list. And this one lights up too.
Okay. I don't know why, I just find that entertaining. Like, she's got an interesting style, I guess. I did like the sign that she put up. That was kind of clever. Okay. Let's get on to the next thing here. I learned today that there is an election integrity caucus in Congress, and it's run by Claudia Tenney, a representative from New York, upstate New York. So let me show you this. And it's actually got quite a list of people in it. And, for these people, and you can't, now you can see the wrong thing. Hold on. Those are just my notes for the show. I'll try again. Luckily, I didn't say anything weird there. But okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, this is the Election Integrity Caucus. And what's kind of interesting about this is I didn't know this existed. It has an extensive list of members, as you can see. Not one of the Utah Congress people are on this list. Not one. Okay, so Eternal Sun says hi. And then Caroline Teaches Math called that realtor Temu Jennifer Newsom. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's actually a good description. I kind of wonder if she's like that in person, right? It would be kind of funny if that's how she always talks. I kind of want to meet her now because I think she might be entertaining. Okay. But so they have this caucus. Not one of our Utah congressmen is a member of it. I'll have to ask Phil. I do feel like he would probably be a member of this. I don't want to speak for him, but this seems like it would be right up his alley. Now let me tell you, they're doing some good work too. So here's an example. Let me switch. Give me 1 second. Let me just get this up. So they actually found that in New York, there were, let's see how many people it was. It was a lot of people who were registered without who didn't, so they The state is continuing to register individuals who don't provide driver's licenses, the last 4 digits of their social security number, or a declaration that they have neither as required by federal law. It's a little bit weird that you can do a declaration like that, but my point is, oh, and then they said this here. At least 3.1 million New York registered voters have not provided a driver's license or social security number on their application form. The Conservative Public Interest Legal Foundation determined it in a 2022 report. So this group, this caucus, is doing a very good job. And it would be really good if some of our own legislators were on it, right? If one of our congressmen joined it and started to look into our election system and find ways to leverage federal law to then come back and improve our system, because we have major problems in our election system. So not one, okay? And I think that's a problem. Let's see here, we've got Utah Politico. Oh, I liked your reporting, by the way, it was very good. Our congressmen are atrocious, its swamps are us, and we ain't invited to the party. That's probably true. And Mars Gate says, just getting here, hi, thank you for coming. Okay, now I wanna talk about sexual harassment in Congress. So let me pull this up for you. Hold on. Okay, I'll show you this, and then I'm gonna kind of talk you guys through what's going on. So Rod Blagojevich, who is the former governor of my home state of Illinois, and like most governors there, he went to prison, and then Trump pardoned him. And here's what he says. There have been 268 settlements for workplace disputes, including for sexual misconduct, totaling $17 million in taxpayer money. In March 2026, the House voted to cover up the names of members paying to settle sexual misconduct claims. Why are the names of these members being covered up? So this has become an issue because in that March vote, all 4 of Utah's congressmen voted against disclosing information about these settlements. And what the resolution would have done is it would have disclosed which offices had settled or have settled sexual harassment claims or sexual misconduct claims, but it would have protected the identities of the victims and witnesses. And what I'm having trouble understanding is why it is that there are 4 congressmen in Utah who voted against this type of transparency. Now I want to add, I don't know if Blagojevich's actual number is correct. I found another report. This is from Real Clear Policy. Actually, hold on. I had a better version of this for you guys. Give me one sec. Here. I did some highlights, so it'll be easier for people to follow if you are watching. So this says, now this is an older report. It's from 2021, the article. Instead of the 17 million that Blagojevich cited, this has 18.2 million congressional slush fund for Me Too claims. It says since 1997, the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights has paid out 18.2 million to settle 291 cases of workplace disputes for Congress, the Capitol Police, the Architect of the Capitol, and the Library of Congress. What's really interesting is that this also says that congressmen can actually pay these claims out of their congressional budget offices. So not all settlements of sexual harassment claims would actually come out of the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights. So specifically, the article says that Conyers, I guess he resigned. So he was 88. And so there were reports that then Representative John Conyers from Michigan negotiated a secret settlement with a female staffer who accused him of sexual misconduct, and the 88-year-old quickly resigned from Congress. It turns out Conyers' congressional office budget paid out his sexual misconduct settlement, meaning that the total wasn't even included in the multi-million-dollar slush fund reported total. So the dollar amount that we're citing, either whatever, 17 million, 18.2 million, that is unlikely to actually cover the full dollar amount of the settlements that have occurred. The problem here is that we can get to the information from the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights, correct? Like that's a centralized location where if somebody goes and files a claim, they'll settle it out of there. That office can be then directed to release the information, which is what Congress wanted to do, or Nancy Mace wanted to do, and some of the other congressmen who voted with her, not any Utah congressmen, oddly enough. But there's going to be other settlements out there that we just won't know about because they're coming out of congressional budgets. And that suggests to me that there actually need to be restrictions placed onto those congressional budgets from whoever it is that doles that money out, which I suspect might be the speaker. Meaning there should be restrictions saying you cannot use this money to settle sexual harassment or sexual misconduct claims. Those claims actually need to go to the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights. My whole overall point is we have no idea what the real number of these types of settlements are in Congress. Okay, let me stop sharing for a minute. What is going on here? Oh, stop sharing. Okay. So that's a little background on it. Now, when I went through this, the average settlement is about $63,000. That's actually pretty good. And I'll say this, typically, I've done employment law before. Most employment law claims, so discrimination and things like that, typically don't have merit. Meaning that what happens is you're at work, you get a bad review, and then what happens is your boss starts to get you for performance, and a great defense to that is to claim discrimination. You kind of muddy the waters a little bit, and then you can settle the claim. And a lot of people do that. And so in my experience, there typically are not many claims that have merit. Now, having said that, I think when you see a settlement, that means that the claim probably had merit, and you should be asking questions about that. Like, what happened here? What's going on? Now, so we had this vote in Congress in March. Our 4 congressmen voted with Republicans and Democrats to keep that information a secret, to keep the hush money payments a secret from the public. And I think a big question is why? What are they hiding? What were they told? Why did they agree to do that? Ostensibly, I think all 4 of them are LDS, right? So Kennedy, and I'm going to make a point on this. So it's not a negative point. It's a point about this. But Kennedy, Burgess Owens, Blake Moore, definitely, as far as I know, LDS. And practicing. Celeste grew up LDS. I don't know if she still is or not. That's a little bit unclear. There's not a lot of information about Celeste's personal life, probably on purpose. But I think this raises a question about, or for me, it raises a thing where I think to myself, well, they're LDS. I would have thought they'd want this information to be public, because I generally do think that LDS culture actually discourages this type of behavior, right? So sexually harassing employees, sexually assaulting people seems like it would be less of an issue. So I'm surprised by their votes, and I'm wondering what they're trying to protect. I did read somewhere that there was a push to keep the information secret because John Cornyn, he's a senator from Texas. There's going to be a runoff election between him and Ken Paxton for the Senate seat. And the allegations are that John Cornyn settled a sexual harassment claim from a male staffer. Now, John Cornyn is married to a woman. And so, but the suggestion is he's actually gay. And so they're trying to cover that up until they can get past at least the runoff election. I don't know if that's actually what drove it, though, because none of these guys have really talked about it. Someone did say that Mike Kennedy actually talked about it and said that he didn't vote for it because he was concerned about privacy issues. But I just want to tell you, and we'll get to this, but those claims are totally false, because this actually specifically provided that the information of those who are, the information of the victims and witnesses would be redacted. The whole point of this was to provide information about the congressmen and congresswomen who were accused of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct and then settled those claims. That's what we want to know. Okay, now this has obviously come to a big head this week because of Representative Swalwell. Right? And so as I was prepping, Swalwell actually announced that he will be, he's gonna be resigning from Congress. So here, let me share this. Let's see if my computer works.
That you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened. And I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California. I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past. But those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
Okay. I want to add that I actually generally like to see these allegations play out because there are people in the political world who will make false claims against somebody in order to ruin their political career, right? Well, yeah, okay. And as Utah Politico says, we know he's an offender because people have been saying it for years. It's actually really interesting because reporters have come forward and said they've known about this for years, which should raise a question to everybody. If you knew about it for years, why didn't you report on it? That's actually interesting news. But I think what happens is that people get into these positions of power. They end up, I'm trying to think of the word, it appeals to the worst of human nature, right? So I think for somebody like this, he's got all this power, all these women maybe want to be with him, or maybe they don't, but he knows he can use that power. There are people out to blackmail him. He's apparently doesn't have the judgment to realize that. And so he starts doing things that are very, you might consider debauchery. And eventually it catches up with him when he's running for governor. If you notice, when he's run for House, he's been in political office now for 20 years. So no one ever brought it up until he started running for California governor. And it looked like because of how the Democrat field is, 2 Republicans had the possibility of advancing to the general election, which would have killed the Democrats' ability to hold the governor's house there. So now that's an old statement, the video. He actually put out a statement a little while ago. It's at the bottom here. And he says, "I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegation made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, but it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. I will work with my staff in the ending days to ensure they are able in my absence to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District." Okay, so he's at some point now, he did not give a date, so I don't actually believe this yet, but he's apparently going to resign, which makes me think that the allegations are probably true. Otherwise, why resign? Caroline Teaches Math says, oh, please, it was a Dem op because Hilton is polling too high. They're banking on Katie Porter being the lesser of two evils. You might be right. I mean, I wouldn't doubt anything here. I think there's something to it, though, because of the fact that he resigned. And somebody, I can't, Anna Paulina Luna, she posted something saying she's been given information that there will be more videos released tomorrow of Eric Swalwell in compromising positions. Also, one of the victims is apparently going to have a press conference tomorrow in California and come forward. So this seems like this is going to keep going. Now, I will say this. If he resigns from Congress, it'll shut down any investigations that Congress does, because I think they lose jurisdiction once the person leaves. But if there are criminal things that happen, I do think that local prosecutors should investigate and continue to until there's accountability, if there should be. You shouldn't be able to get out of any misconduct you did just because you resigned from Congress. Okay, so that's where this came to a head. Now, and this happened because this week we got this video of Swalwell in a hotel room. I'm just going to play this if you know, like, it's not, I don't think there's anything that bad here. I do think there's something weird about this video. And what you can see is there are three people. Oh, hold on. There's another man in the video, and I'm thinking we're going to learn who that man is. And so here you can see it here. There's someone film. There's actually two other people here. There's someone filming, and then there's a person on the bed. So, and people are, I think that's what we're going to find out, is who else is in the room with him. And that this is going to blow up into a bigger thing because it could be other elected officials. Okay. Now, after this video came out and it started to kind of become a bigger thing, 50 of his former staffers came out and said that he should resign. Okay. And what they said in this article, it's in the New York Times, so hold on. I thought it was kind of interesting. So in this article, right, it was actually, the article was in the San Francisco Chronicle. A former staff member for Mr. Swalwell said the congressman had sexually assaulted her in a New York hotel room after an event in 2024. The staffer, who was not named, and that's where I have issues, right? You're making these allegations, you're not willing to say your name. A little bit problematic, I think. The staffer, who was not named, told the local newspaper that she had been too intoxicated to consent to the encounter and that Mr. Swalwell had ignored her when she had tried to refuse. Now, again, I want to see where this goes, so I'm not going to assume that he's actually guilty of it yet, but I will note this. At the time, he's married. He is married. And so he's doing this while his wife is at home in California or DC, and that's problematic, regardless of whether this was consensual or not. So just think about it that way. There is misconduct happening here. And even if this was consensual, let's say it was consensual, this opens him up to blackmail. Because what if it was like that video we just saw where there's other people in the room while he's doing the stuff filming it? That is the type of stuff that can be used against congressmen and elected officials to make them do things that they wouldn't otherwise normally do. Marsgate says, I don't know what the 4 is. And then says, oh, in that video I showed you, there was a chick coming out of the bathroom in the background. So that's like 5 people in that video while he is engaging in sexual acts. I mean, or the prelude maybe to that, right? So that's my point, is that these people are getting set up for blackmail, which is why it is critical that we have transparency when they're settling these sexual harassment or sexual misconduct claims. We should not let them settle this type of a claim, have the person sign an NDA, and just make it go away, because again, it could cause us all sorts of problems with blackmail. And I just, if you're going to be in public life, if you're going to be in public office, you just have to expect that you're like everything could be public, and then you shouldn't be engaging in this type of conduct. Okay. Caroline Teaches Math says second marriage. Oh, okay. If second marriage, but still, and I don't know why his first marriage ended, but still, like, this is problematic because maybe his second marriage was starting out good. I assume that it may not last after all. I mean, I feel bad for his wife if she didn't know. Okay, so that's kind of my whole point with this. Keeping the information private, keeping it from the public is a big problem. It's covering for people in the establishment, and it opens people up to being blackmailed. Plus, when they're using taxpayer money, we have a right to know exactly how it's being spent. And so it is my view that that vote by all four of our current congressmen was wrong. Now, let me see. So, as I noted, Congressman Kennedy apparently told somebody, I don't know who, I just saw a post about it, and I couldn't find an interview where he's addressed it, but that he was concerned about privacy, right? So the victims' privacy, protecting their identity, but that is actually just a lie. And it's a lie meant to allow them to cover up whatever they're trying to cover up. I don't know what's in those files, but here, let me share something else with you. George Santos, and look, he may have some credibility problems because I don't really understand what he did when he was in Congress, but he was prosecuted for it. Eventually, he was, I think, pardoned for it. But he has talked that there's a lot of issues in Congress and there's a lot of dirty things going on. So he put out this tweet today saying that when he was in Congress, he used to talk to staff and reporters on the Hill a lot. I was actually listening to the Timcast IRL podcast the other day, and they had Santos on, and I thought this was interesting. Santos actually said that when he ran for Congress, he was the first Republican to win a majority of the female vote in a congressional district in a really long time in New York. And he was saying that he thinks it's because he's gay and that the women felt comfortable talking to him. So he would go and be like, "Oh, I love your purse. I love your nails." He essentially said every woman is a fag hag. So they love a gay guy. And I guess that benefited his campaign. But here, what he says is that during his time in Congress, he learned about the activities taking place in the quote unquote cages, which are the storage rooms in the basement of the House office buildings. I can only imagine what's going on down there. I reported it to House admin chair at the time, Brian Steele, and he did nothing. But over the course of my time on Capitol Hill, I learned a lot of members had rumors and or allegations against them. Now, I'm not the sex police and never dug into it, but to name a few rumors I heard about when I was there of members engaging in lewd or alleged sexual misconduct, like behavior with staff or reporters. So then he names a bunch. A couple of them we already know because they're Eric Swalwell, not surprising. Tony Gonzalez, not surprising. Max Miller, Dan Muser, Matt Rosendale, this guy's actually from Montana. Ruben Gallego, Nancy Mace, Anthony Desposito, Mark Green, Lori Chavez, Richie Torres, Brian Steele, Cory Booker, and Bob Menendez. So I think what this shows is we don't even have a sense of the full extent of the types of misconduct that are going on in Congress. These are our elected officials. We can expect higher of them, and we should. And that starts with demanding that they vote to release all of the settlements of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct claims by any congressman or woman. And I just want to add, I suspect it's both congressmen and congresswomen. So here's what Phil put out about this, because somebody responded to him and said what I was saying, that the reason they did not vote for this is that it would disclose the identity of victims and witnesses, but that's false. It wouldn't have done that. In fact, I went to, this is actually, or I should say this language here is from Nancy Mace's website, and she specifically says that personally identifiable information of victims, alleged victims, and witnesses would be redacted to protect their privacy. So claims that you didn't want this information public because you're trying to protect these victims and these witnesses are just false. What you were doing is you were protecting people in power, and this is what always happens. They use victims, the same abusers who abuse victims, then use the victims and use the claim about their privacy or whatever it is to then protect themselves and not have to disclose the misconduct that they were involved in. I just think here we need a change. And this is a good indication of a reason why it's time to clean out the congressmen in Utah. All three of them that are running for re-election voted to keep this information private. All three of them need to go. So Blake Moore, Mike Kennedy, Celeste Malloy. All three of them need to go. And they all actually need to answer questions about why they voted the way they did. I haven't heard a cogent answer that is honest and makes any sense. And I suspect the answer is either the speaker told us to. That might be one of them. We're trying to protect John Cornyn. That could be another one. Or maybe there's a Republican in Utah who had to settle a sexual harassment claim and they don't want that information public. I don't know what it is, but I want to know. I think they should answer that question. And I don't think you should give them your vote until they answer it. Because just to put this really like blatant for everybody, I think sometimes people in Utah think, oh, this won't impact me, right? Oh, this won't impact me. Nothing will happen to my family. If somebody here sends their daughter or their son to DC to go and do an internship, this could happen to them. This exact thing. You know, you send your young child there, if they're LDS, right? Let's say they just graduated from high school. They haven't had any sexual encounters yet. They're not married. They go to DC and then some douchebag congressman or woman corrupts them, takes advantage of them, and they do this settlement. I think you'd want to know about that, right? Because they're going to impact your child. This could be your kid who's a victim. So I really think we need to make sure that this information is public. So I'm just calling on people, like, ask them the question. They are up for election. They are asking for your vote. Make them answer it. Make them answer it directly. And if they try to say, oh, I was trying to protect the victims or the witness's privacy, show them that you know that that's false, that they're lying. Jensen says, anytime Republicans and Democrats agree, it's bad news. I know, seriously. Okay, and then down here, Lyman said, Nancy Mace, a survivor herself, said enough. She brought this to the floor. 65 members had the courage to vote with her. Utah's reps voted with the 357 who didn't. Now, Mace put out a statement. In her statement, now just, again, keep in mind, Mace is a big old drama queen, right? So I find some of her antics to be totally offensive and I don't like them. But she does say that she's a survivor. I think she was at is it called the Virginia Military Institute? You know, she went to a military college, and I think she claims that she was sexually assaulted or raped at that college. So in that way, she's a survivor of sexual assault. And I guess I'll just believe her because I don't have a reason not to here. And for this purpose, it kind of makes sense. So when she proposed this, she wanted to protect the victims' identities. But she says here, after the vote happened, she said, every member who voted against this resolution voted to protect the cover-up instead of the victims. This is the establishment in action, always protecting itself, never the victims. Ask yourself why. Remember their names when they ask for your vote. So to Jensen's point, those Republicans and Democrats are establishment. They did this because they're trying to protect powerful people from actually being held accountable for their actions. And we should not tolerate that. And we shouldn't tolerate Utah elected officials who went along with this. They need to have better judgment than that. Okay. Now, next I want to talk about this. Oh, okay. I'll just talk about this a little bit. I posted this post and it's gotten a lot of traction, which I thought was interesting. But last week, one of my neighbors came over and she was a delegate Okay, so the Marsgate says something like eyes wide shut, and the Mormons know something about that. Haha. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I will say, I found I've learned weird things lately. Like somebody did tell me that that swingers is like a real thing in Daybreak, and I don't even know how to respond to that. So, except it's surprising, I guess. I live right by Daybreak. I don't know if any of my neighbors are involved in that. I feel like they wouldn't be though, so I'm just gonna assume no. Okay. Well, okay. One of my neighbors came over, and she was a delegate in 24 when I ran for the state house, and she was actually, anyway, she was one of the delegates. And when I ran for state house in 24, it was really a weird race. And I was going door to door. So there was like, let's say 80 something delegates in the race. I went to everybody's house, sat down with as many people as I could, talked to them about the issues. I had some really weird experiences. Like one woman, I went to her house, and when I walked up, she was standing outside. It was getting darker. Her response to me was so weird. Like it seemed like she felt threatened by me being there, and it was just so strange because I don't feel like I look threatening. Most people, I don't think if I walked up to them would think that I'm going to be threatening, and the response was so odd that it actually kind of made me feel a little bit uncomfortable about going to people's homes like that when it starts to get darker. I took it, and I'm not trying to say this to say that I feel like people are racist, but I took it as maybe because I'm darker skinned, she felt a certain way about it. And I just kind of felt like, well, maybe I should just be a little bit more cognizant of how people could respond, because they weren't expecting me. But take that for what it is. What was kind of interesting about this discussion is she came by and she was telling me that because I got wiped out, right? Like my opponent got let's say 80% of the delegate vote. It was wild, and it was quite a flip from the 2 years prior. When I ran for clerk, I got I think it was 66 or 67% of the delegate vote for all of Salt Lake County. Okay. Then when I run for this House seat, it's a complete flip. And there's a couple reasons I think this happened, and it's not just because I'm gay. But what she told me is that there were multiple delegates who told her that they would not vote for me because I'm openly gay, and they would prefer to have a married person with kids in the position. Now, I already had a sense that that's what it was, but I also think on top of that, it's that I'm not LDS. And I think those two things combined just made it a very difficult race, because even though I think the policies that I was promoting would be better for people who have kids. So I was promoting that we would ban hedge funds from buying homes was one thing. I was promoting that we would do real school choice. So if you pull your kids out of school, you get your property taxes are refunded, no government regulation. Things like that. Or a property tax cap, so people can stay in their homes for everybody, not just for when you get a senior citizen, but for everybody. Things that I think actually help families stay in their homes, things that make housing more affordable so that your children can move back. And my opponent was very focused on AI, which I get is an issue, but to me, it's not as pressing in terms of right now as these kind of things that are very much impacting families in Utah. And it's certainly, it's an issue, but it's not the biggest issue, I don't think. Needless to say, that race ended up where it was. And I thought it was those two things combined. Me being openly gay, and then also not being LDS. And part of the not being LDS is when people accuse me of being negative, because I would do things like I'd ask to do a debate, right? And he wouldn't debate. And I think he wouldn't debate because he's actually not very good on policy. But a lot of the voters took that as being a negative on my part. I've talked about the email I got where this woman told me that she didn't want to hear about anything about my opponent and how he won't debate. She just wants to hear all the good things I'm going to do, and then she'll compare all the good things I'm going to do to all the good things he's going to do. I just don't know how you have an election like that. It doesn't make sense to me. But I did take it personally at the time because I realized what had happened earlier. This delegate just confirmed it. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this, because if the delegates and the voters are going to judge me based on something that I do not think I can help, and I'm honest about it, it's not like I'm not trying to push it in your face. It just is what it is. And you should know it, because like I was talking about earlier, when you have secrets, those are things that can be used for blackmail. I don't want to be blackmailed ever. And so I would rather you just know that I'm gay. And then if I run for office, you know that. So then so no one can tell you, oh, he's gay, or I'm not afraid that you're going to find out that about me, because you already know it. So no one can blackmail me by saying, oh, I'm going to tell people you're gay. Okay. Everybody knows. Go tell them, like, it's not a big deal. So that's kind of the point. But anyway, so I got this job in Vegas. I was going to move. And then I had a realization, and this kind of took it helped after I definitively had a job I wanted to take. I was able to sit down and be like, okay, I have to be realistic about this. First of all, Vegas is 1,000 degrees. But also, I can't guarantee I'll ever be in elected office. I'm not even sure that it's that important. But what I can guarantee or look for is, where can I have the biggest impact? And I think in Utah, I've already had an impact, and I have a better chance of having an impact here than if I move somewhere else like Vegas, where there will be other people that have already been there, and I won't have the institutional knowledge. I won't understand the politics. And so after kind of thinking about it, I decided to stay. Okay. But then I was thinking more about what the delegate said. And here's kind of what I came to with it, is that it's not that Utahns won't elect, or LDS voters in this case, on the Republican side. All of this is only on the Republican side. If I was a Democrat, I am like the unicorn that they would put into every office that they could, right? I'm dark-skinned. My parents are from India. I'm the son of immigrants. I'm a veteran. I'm gay. I'm like their poster child, But as a Republican, I do like that we don't really seem to focus on that. But I think on the Republican side here, not being LDS is a disadvantage. And then obviously being openly gay, I want to be very clear, is also a disadvantage. And so if you look across the state, I can only think of one Republican who's in elected office who's not LDS right now, and that's Christina Boggess. If I'm missing someone that's lower down, feel free to correct me, but I don't think there's a lot of non-LDS people that are in elected office in Utah as Republicans. But you got people here don't elect openly gay guys or women to office on the Republican side, but they do elect closet cases. That's where I want to go next. So Susan, I think, says, wow, you're going to move to Vegas. Would have been sad to lose you. Oh, thanks. I changed my mind. Like I said, I went out there actually twice, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to find a place. And I have 2 dogs. They're not here. They're actually in Montana, because I was gonna sell my house. So I drove them up to Montana to my ex's house. And then I haven't gotten the chance to go back and get them because I've been too busy. But I'm gonna go, I think, after the state convention. And so I went to Vegas twice. It was so hot. It's just too much. I can't stand it. I hate super hot weather. I don't even like summers in Utah because it's too hot. And the intent, I just didn't know how I would survive a summer there. I just thought I would be like, I'd feel tortured all summer long. And I didn't know how my dogs would survive, because I have an Akita, and that dude like hates hot weather. So I just felt like if I took him to Vegas, he'll probably like die. And after all of that, I was like, yeah, it's not worth it. And I'd have to go work for somebody. And I realized I'm not sure that I should really be working for somebody. I have my own practice right now, but if I have to be an employee, I feel like I might feel like I'm somebody's bitch. And I don't, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it better, but like, I just don't want to, I don't know that I can do it anymore. Something I got to figure out. Okay, so let me show you this. This is the CD2 election. This is the special election that happened. This is the list of people who ran for that election. It's quite a list. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11 people ran after Chris Stewart resigned, and we had a special election. I am going to tell you that I think there's 2 people that are gay on this list, and but they're closeted. So, and that's kind of what I'm saying is I think Utahns are okay with electing people that are probably gay into office as long as they're not out on the Republican side. Okay, anyway, that's my point on that. So, and the issue with doing that though is, again, it raises a problem about if you're in the closet, how can people then turn around and blackmail you? Because the reason you're in the closet is that you're afraid if people know that you're gay, that you or I should say, you don't want people to know for whatever reason. And I know a lot of people like this in Utah. They're like in their 40s. It's obvious that it's like a 40-year-old man or woman, no significant other, grew up LDS, no significant other of the opposite sex, at least for years and years. At that, or never, at that point, it should be pretty obvious that that person is gay. That's why that happens 99% of the time. And so I just feel like if you understand that and you start to look around at people running for office, some of it will make more sense about the ones that are not telling you about themselves. And then I would say, look, if they're not going to be honest about it, you shouldn't vote for them. Because again, there's nothing wrong with being gay. The issue is keeping a secret like that, because that secret can be used against you. And I do think we have a lot of people in this state in elected office who, to me, are either closet cases, and maybe they're being blackmailed, or maybe they just believe it. But to me, I want to believe some of it's blackmail. Okay. Let's see. So the next, amnesty. So this is a congressional issue. I do think we're going to have amnesty in the second half of Trump's term. So, or maybe sooner. I don't know. I just think we are heading into a very, very bad direction. And so people need to kind of think about that. And let me show you this video here. This is Stephen Miller was on, let's see, Fox News. And so let's listen for a little bit.
Democrat or Republican who does not. It's impossible to talk about immigration reform without sealing the border. Nobody I know, Democrat or Republican, who does not believe the border is sealed. Leads some to say, like farmers and meat packers, what about some of the illegals here that are helping my company? Which led Mike Lowell, a Republican in a battleground district, to roll out the Dignity Act. Here's a little of it.
It says if you've been here more than 5 years, so not the people that came under Joe Biden's disastrous administration, but the people who have been in this country more than 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years, whose children and grandchildren may in fact be American citizens.
There would be, I just want to add, there would be no way to prove this. It'll be full of fraud. They did the same thing in the amnesty that happened under Reagan, where they did it, oh, if you were here before a certain date, people create fraudulent documents. Plus, once you have a Democrat win the presidency again, which I'll just tell you, I do think we're probably heading in that direction on the trajectory we are on. They can just have the immigration officers just waive the requirements and just kind of overlook these types of problems, right? The whole point of any Democrat administration is going to be to process these people, get them amnesty, and move them towards citizenship so they can officially make them voters as quickly as possible.
They would qualify if they have not committed a crime. They pay back taxes.
Just that's also false. They Laura Ingraham did a good job of exposing this on her show. They allow people who have had DUIs to stay and get amnesty. They ban the federal government from looking into state and local gang databases when they're deciding whether to give someone amnesty. This bill is full of holes in order to get the criminals and to legalize them into our country.
They pay a fine. They have a job, and they do not collect government benefits. They would qualify.
Almost like tons of them do, so I don't even know that that's going to be enforced.
For a legal status, not citizenship.
So a little about what he mentioned, but here's some of the facts with the Dignity Act. Where do you stand with it, Stephen?
Well, you know that this administration opposes amnesty. President Trump has always been clear in his opposition to amnesty, and I, of course, you know my own views. But I want to reframe this whole conversation, Brian, if I could, to something that President Trump has been very focused on for a long time, and that's about having the kind of immigration to this country that makes us stronger, not weaker. I think this conversation gets siloed too often when we have to look at the whole picture. You know, you saw the recent tragic case where an illegal alien from Haiti bludgeoned a woman to death in broad daylight with a hammer, smashing her skull in, one hammer blow after another. That's what happens when you have open borders to this country from some of the most dangerous parts of the world. That's one person that Biden let in, the Democrats let in, to maim and murder our citizens, but there are thousands more. When you have open migration, as we've had, Brian, largely, it was very bad under Biden, but largely for 5 decades before President Trump, we had open migration from the most dangerous places of the world. How do your schools work? How do your hospitals work? How does your economy work? How do you have a society that can win all?
Okay. So the problem here is that he doesn't say that they're against the Dignity Act. And Trump, if you notice, has this mixed messaging on immigration since he won. It's like, okay, well, I'm against, obviously we should have a closed border. The border is actually not really closed, just so people understand. I've seen reporting that there's about 1,000 people a day still coming across the border in various ways. So not completely sealed, still have people coming through. Now, they're not saying that they're opposed to the Dignity Act because Trump has indicated that he wants these employers to be able to get their cheap labor. That is a thing. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. And yes, Jensen says Trump's entire presidency is based on immigration. He better veto any amnesty. I agree. But I also think Miller is missing the point in what we just played. I don't think people want more immigration. They want less of it. There is not a positive to having this constant flow of immigrants coming in, even legally. It's actually destroying our job markets and making it harder for Americans to be able to make a living across the board. It's at every level. I mean, it's just horrible. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these programs, but this is a projection. What he says, the fact that he doesn't just shut down the Dignity Act is a problem. And it means that we are likely to see amnesty in the second half of Trump's term. That will be the impact of what happens when Democrats win the House, which I think is where this trajectory is going, and likely win the Senate too. I actually think Trump's presidency is essentially over once they take over both houses. So, but I think from the perspective of those of us in Utah, this is important to know because you need to be very careful now when you're electing people to Congress, knowing what is probably coming. So we're not going to, I think it's highly unlikely. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but the reality is I can see the writing on the wall. The Republicans are going to be in the minority in the House. And so if there is an amnesty bill that's being negotiated and Trump is going to sign it, we want to have conservatives that actually care about Americans in congressional positions from Utah. So on that, let me show, this is Celeste Malloy talking about
we have Utah companies that need workers and they can't get them because the system's not working, especially in the agriculture and tourism industries, they use a lot of the H-2A visas. They need more of them. And some of them have workers that come for 6 months every year and go home for 6 months every year that have been doing this for a long time. But just like everything else with the federal government, it's gotten bogged down. So now they can't get the paperwork processed in time, or they, the same people who've been coming for years are suddenly hitting snags that don't make any sense. So just like everything else I talk about with the government, I would like to see us get more efficient at processing things. We have some programs that are already in place. We just need to make them work better. And then we have Utah.
So let me go through what she says again, because this is an open. Jensen says she's talking about Carson Jorgensen. Okay. So there's a couple things here. Number one, the tourism argument. These hotels need foreign labor. And I guess my thinking here is that shouldn't those jobs be for Americans? And if they're not able to get an American to come and do the job at $10 an hour, the answer is not to allow them to import a foreigner. That's what they're arguing. The answer is for them to raise their wages until an American wants to do it. And that's been the problem across the board. Wages in America are being massively suppressed because of open borders policies, which are still continuing, and all of these temporary visa programs. What's the H-2A program is exactly that. It's not that there's no one willing to go down to Springdale, right, at the mouth of Zion, and go there and work at the hotels there. It's a beautiful little town. I would go do it for a summer. But you're going to have to pay me more than $10 an hour to do it, or whatever you want to pay. And so the answer is not to allow them to import foreigners. It's to say to them, hey, if you can't find a worker, you're going to have to pay more. That's just how this works. So pay people more. And then I want to add for tourists, the way they talk about this is we should have all of our hotels be staffed by foreigners. And I just think to myself, so all these foreigners who come to Utah to visit, they want to go to a hotel and then be served by foreigners? Or do they want to come to America to actually experience American culture, which requires you to have American service workers that are helping them? So I would just say to people, our tourism industry doesn't need foreigners running it. It needs the people that run these companies to increase their wages until they can have American workers. Now, for Celeste, there's nothing personal about this. She doesn't have kids, so this doesn't impact her. She's only ever worked for the government, as far as I can tell. And so that's a very different career trajectory to go on. If you've never worked in the private sector, you don't know how it works. And so, yeah, of course, your solution is, well, these people give me money. Let me get them the cheap labor they need. And I think that's a problem. That's a problem, right? Because I feel like, at least if you have kids, people ought to understand that when your kids are teenagers, they may want to go and do these jobs for the summer. It's a great opportunity. Maybe they do it as an adult because that's what they like to do. Not everyone goes to college. We need to have opportunities for them. And I don't think we have enough. So I would say like this is an area where we need to cut immigration. We need to cut it down to zero. Now, she also mentioned farms. We always hear this about agriculture and how they need foreign workers to pick their strawberries. I actually have no idea what farms in Utah need foreign workers for. I don't know. But here's what I'll say. Number one, again, you need to pay higher wages. That's just the bottom line. And so, for example, I hear this is the one they always say, right? Who's going to pick the strawberries if we don't allow foreign migrant labor to come here? And I say, well, you don't need to have foreigners come here to pick strawberries. You could have Americans do it, but you are going to have to pay more. Because, for example, if you say to me, hey, Goud, I need you to come and pick my strawberries this weekend, I'll pay you $10 an hour. I would say, well, why would I do that? I can go to McDonald's and get a job for $20 an hour, and that's way easier. And I'm not even saying to be offensive to people at McDonald's. I love McDonald's, but that's an easier job than picking strawberries. The strawberry guy obviously should make more. And so if you're a farmer, you need to pay more money. You need to acknowledge that it costs money. Like, people are not going to do that job if they can get an easier, less physically demanding job that pays more. And there's plenty of them. So on that, I think that's the answer. Or mechanize. Because if we keep on letting them get slave labor, they're not going to modernize and mechanize. That's part of what happens. That's a Utah Politico Mirror AI says, you have to admit Carson Jorgensen sure disappeared and became irrelevant. Well, he's still pontificating on Facebook about election issues. So, and then he says, I live on a farm. You do not need a foreign worker unless you want to pay them under the table for indentured servant wages. Exactly. That's the point. And of course, Celeste is out here advocating that we should have all this cheap labor come in. So this, and how does this help American kids? What about her policies is helping American kids? On the tourism front, do businesses in St. George get the H-2A visas in their hotels because they can't find an American worker? There's not tons of teenagers in St. George who can go and work that job, or college kids? Of course there are. They don't want to hire them. But she's going to go and she's going to make it easier. If you notice at the end there, she's very specific. I want to make it so much easier. Just like all of government, it should be really easy for you to be able to go and apply to import foreign workers to replace all the Americans. And I don't like that. I have a problem with that. I want us to be a nation where we put Americans first. And it's really offensive because, these foreigners come here, they get these temporary jobs. They're not actually having to get any of the burdens of citizenship. So we send Americans to go and fight in Iran while foreigners come here and they take all the good jobs. So, riddle me that. Like, how exactly is that good for America? I don't know. Okay. So that's one example of this. And so I haven't been able to find her saying anything explicit about H-1B visas, which I also think are a massive problem. Those are wiping out the middle class. So her issue with the H-2A visas, that takes working class jobs out of the pipeline for everyday people. Okay, so and we need more of those jobs, and we need to have a labor shortage so that the wages go up. But then they've also got H-1B visas that destroy the middle class. They'll tell you some BS about how there's 180,000 cap every year, but the reality is that there's exemptions from the cap, like universities aren't subject to it, and there's already 6 million H-1B visa workers in the U.S. right now. I think like 85% of them, or 80%, it's a very high percentage, are from India. I can tell you that most of them they're not geniuses. They don't have this amazing talent that you can't find in America. None of that. Okay, it's a nepotism system, a caste system. They bring it here, and what happens is they get one person. That person then tells their family members about it. When the family members come over, they will train them in the skills that they need at the job. And I know this because I have heard it from actual people who have been a part of it. So it's a fraud, and we need to get rid of it. And it's actually impacting our middle class, because what happens is the H-1B person comes, they're allowed to bring their spouse. The spouse gets a separate visa from DHS. It was created through a regulation, so it can also be repealed through, I think Congress can repeal it by just attaching it to a statute. Notice they haven't done that. That's 12 million people, probably, that have visas to work here in jobs that should be going to middle class or to Americans. And if you notice, and if you look, we have a massive number of people that go to school for computer science and other computer degrees and are not able to find jobs because they're taken by foreigners, which means that we've told people, oh, hey, you should go learn to code. And then they learn to code, they listen, and then they try to go get a job, and the jobs are all taken by foreigners, because apparently that's what we prioritize here. And to Jensen's point earlier about immigration, Trump hasn't addressed these issues. He actually seems to think that we need all these temporary visa workers coming here. Well, H-1B is supposed to be temporary. I don't really know that it is. But notice we don't have enough jobs. So why do they keep on coming in every year? It's just a replacement program. Okay, so then next, so that's Celeste. So Celeste has made it explicitly clear she supports temporary visa programs to replace you in those jobs. You, your family members, your friends, your children, whoever is going to do these jobs, she supports replacing them with cheap foreign labor because she's trying to suppress your wages and she's trying to take away opportunities from Americans. Now, the next one on this list is Mike Kennedy. And so Mike actually is a co-sponsor of a bill, and I stupidly didn't. Give me 1 second here. I had it up. This bill would create a whole new class of visas only for working class jobs. So essentially, Mike Kennedy now is coming for your working class jobs. It's going to help wipe out our working class completely. Okay, just give me a sec here. Sometimes I forget what I'm doing, I guess. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find it. Where is it? Okay, give me 1 sec. Hold on. Sorry, just give me 1 second here. I'm just trying to find it. Let's see, Mike Kennedy. And it's like a new worker visa program. Oh, and then, yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, Mike Kennedy gave a speech. I guess he was addicted to porn or something. I heard it was a good speech, though. So I guess that's the secret he no longer has, so you can't blackmail him based on that. To my point about being transparent. So good for him. I guess I will not criticize him for that. Let's see here. I'm just trying. I know I posted about it. And I mean, for me, this is a red line. Oh, I did. Okay, here, let me show you this actually. Hold on. There's also the OPT program. So this was a program that they can get rid of without Congress. I think it's regulatory. But it allows F1 visas to be recharacterized as OPT, which is the optional training program. I think it goes for 3 years after you graduate from college. They do not pay payroll taxes. So employers do not have to pay payroll taxes on people that are here on OPT visas. And so what that means is a company can hire a student, an international student who just graduated on this OPT program. They can bring them in. They don't have to pay the 15%, so 7.5 or whatever it is for each employer and employee contributions, meaning that employee is now cheaper and they've gotten this American education and now they're getting a job that should go to an American. And they came here under the guise of, oh, well, they're going to enhance our education system here and then they're going to go back home. Well, none of these people go home. They all want to stay here. So now we're stuck with millions of these students who get to use the OPT program, and eventually all of this stuff, they get legalized and they end up staying. Another one we should end. And this was created by regulation. Now, Rick Scott wrote a letter asking the White House to get rid of it. But if I'm being honest with you, Congress could also vote on it and just insert it into a budget bill and get rid of it. They won't. They'll never do it. Because if I've learned one thing, it's that Congress doesn't care about you. Unfortunately, they do not. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about their donors, which is a sad thing for me to have to say, but it's true. Utah Politico says, this may sound extreme, but I think people that hire illegals should be charged with domestic abuse and human trafficking. I mean, I'm good with it. I wish they would just get charged, right? We see these workplace raids, and then literally nobody is actually charged for hiring illegals. It's like not even a big deal. At that point, what do you do with it? Like, where do you even take that? Okay, let me look up Kennedy in my Twitter because I had this. I feel stupid because I did all this research for you guys, and now I can't find what I was looking for. Here. Aha. Okay, here we go. So this is actually the H2C visa program. So this is a new proposal. Okay, so this is H2B, but it's only for jobs that do not require a college degree. I went and I read it. It specifically says you cannot use this type of visa for any job that requires a college degree, under whatever standard they use to figure that out. They have some sort of book that they look in to figure that out. So, and Mike Kennedy is a co-sponsor of this bill. So they'll be able to bring in construction workers under this bill. Is there anybody here that thinks we can't train Americans to do construction work? What they'll tell you now is that Americans don't want to do this job. We apparently, actually, if you look at this, we don't want to do any job under the sun, right? Like there's no job that Americans want to do. They don't want to work on a farm. They don't want to work in fast food. They don't want to work on construction sites. They don't want to do computer work. They don't. So apparently we're all just lazy and just sit around and don't want to do anything, which is a total lie. It's a lie. It's disgusting. And so Mike Kennedy is supporting this bill that would create a whole new class of visas to do, it's the H-1B program for working class jobs. And this would just wipe out the working class in America. I see this as an attack on white working class men. And I think a lot of times those attacks are led by white men like Mike Kennedy, and then white women like Celeste Malloy, because I think Celeste Malloy would 100% support this bill based on her comments in that last video. Apparently we don't, this is not me, so this is Utah Politico. Apparently we don't want to have any job except being the CEO in my bed. I don't know. That's okay. But I'll just say, this is a problem, and this will destroy the working class actually of any race, because all they have to do now is go and import tons of workers. I mean, in Utah, I look at working construction sites. There are hardly any non-foreigners that work on construction sites in this state. The construction industry is dominated by illegals. And it's disgusting. It disgusts me, because that they go and then they lobby the state legislators. That's why we have we have policies that make it so you don't have to use E-Verify until you have 150 employees. It used to be like 15, and they increased it, I think, in 21 or 22 to 150. And I think that was done so construction companies can hire illegals. And when they tried to move it back down, some of these representatives of the construction industry actually went to the state legislature and admitted that they hire illegal aliens. Just imagine, now you're giving them a visa program they can use. What I'd actually like to see is a massive crackdown on these people. And I'd like their business licenses to be taken away. You want to hire illegal aliens? No, we're not okay with that. You need to hire Americans. And if you're going to tell me you can't make a profit, that's not my effing problem. Go out of business. You're supposed to run a business that follows the laws that the rest of us are all subject to as well. Agree. Bad ideas. It's funny that that's your name, because your idea is actually good, but E-Verify should be used always, even for the first employee. I agree. I think we should always use it. And so, but if you're in one of these industries and you're going to come and tell me that, oh, I can't make a profit if I have to hire Americans, then you shouldn't be in business. That's your problem. The system is not supposed to be that if you can't make a profit under the rules that apply to everybody else, you should be able to go and hire illegals. I don't know. That doesn't work. And like I said earlier, I have a real fundamental problem with this, because they do not have any of the responsibilities of being a citizen. I'm not saying they should become citizens. I think they should all go home. But we send American kids, our best and brightest, and I do think that's true because we have a volunteer force. We send them to go fight the wars. And then when they come back, all the jobs are taken by illegals. And construction work should be middle-class work. Okay, it is skilled work. It's hard work. And what they'll tell you is, oh, housing is unaffordable because of the cost of the cost of the workers, the wages. That's not why housing is expensive. It's expensive because the land prices are high. There's tons of regulations on housing and how do you building it. There's tons of hoops they have to jump through in order to build a house. There's so many things that go into that. I do not think the main driver of that is you have to pay someone a normal wage, like whatever. Or if somebody wants to claim that it is, I'm happy, like come and show me. Even then, I'm not going to support you bringing in foreigners to do the jobs instead. You just need to increase your wages. And like I said, mechanize. And if you can't make a profit following the rules that everybody else follows, go out of business. You're not supposed to be a businessman. Bottom line. Okay. Now, so I also don't think you should vote for Mike Kennedy. Done. I'm done. I have no time for this anymore. I'm not voting. I'm actually in CD4. So I made this clear on social media. I will just make it clear again. If Mike Kennedy is the nominee, I am not voting for anyone in CD4 in the general election. Not happening. I'm not a state delegate, so I won't have a say at the convention. I assume that he'll get through to the primary. I will vote for anybody but Mike in the primary. And then if he gets to the general election, I'm leaving it blank. And I don't care if a Democrat wins a seat. Too bad. I'd rather have an honest Democrat who's going to tell me to my face, I want amnesty, than a Republican who's going to make up stories about why we need cheap labor to come here and I need to support him. Like, no thanks. And plus the previous vote I talked about with the sexual harassment settlements, when you put those two things together, there's just no reason to vote for either Celeste Malloy or Mike Kennedy. Both of them need to go. Go retire. Go do something else with your time. Mike can go back to being a doctor. Celeste can go back to being a lawyer somewhere. We don't really need them in office. Okay. Bad Idea says they agree. Okay, let's see. Next here, I think I have FISA. So FISA is, actually, before we get there, Scott Hatfield is running in CD4. And he and I were going back and forth about this because I said that I will not vote for anybody who supports bringing in cheap foreign labor on these temporary visa programs. Like, I want people who actually understand what the issue is and are willing to stop all of this temporary immigration. I'm no excuses. I want it all stopped. We don't need foreigners coming here or being brought here as temporary slave labor to replace Americans. I want them gone. I want employers to actually pay real wages. Okay, so let me see. He had said, give me 1 second. I'm trying to find it. I apologize. I thought I spent all this time today preparing, and then I can't find what I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. Okay. So here, this is the Mike Kennedy one. And then I thought, let's see. So Hatfield responded to me. Okay, and then I said, I don't agree with him. View post. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay, here we go. Finally, I found it. So Scott Hatfield is taking a little bit of a different view of this. I think we're going to clarify this. He said he'll come on next Monday and that we can talk through this because I'd like to know more about where he stands on the immigration issue. He had said in response to that post that I made about Kennedy, he said that I do not support importing labor to fill jobs Americans can be doing. Okay, we're a good starting point. And since there are no jobs Americans cannot do, I would interpret this as there should be no one being imported. Okay. Ideally, I would cut programs like H-1B and F-1 visas to zero. Okay, I like that. realistically, that's unlikely because there are some jobs Americans simply won't fill. And you lost me. So my position is a significant reduction, at least 50%, on any visa program that prioritizes foreign labor over natural-born citizens, permanent residents, and naturalized Americans. Americans and those aspiring to be Americans should always come first. Yeah, some of this is like that Utah stuff I don't agree with, but so then I just said, look, I don't agree with this. The number of H-1Bs, F-1s, and other temporary visas we need is 0. I think I am right on this, okay? The number is 0. We don't need any. 0. As Indians would say, giro. I mean, giro. These programs are rife with fraud. They are. I know because I know Indians who come here on them and have told me about them. We have all the talent we need in America. And this is true. It really bothers me when people try to claim that we don't have talent here. We can take a young man or woman off the street. They join the military. We can train them to fly and maintain Blackhawks. We can train them to run nuclear submarines. We can train these people to do everything. And in the military, I mean everything, okay? Then they come back. Let's say they go deploy, they go to protect our country with whatever war we're in now. Then they come back, and companies like Amazon are like, oh, we can't hire you. We can't train you. I mean, I know that the Navy trained you how to run a submarine, but a nuclear one. But hey, I can't train you how to run this website. I mean, does anyone actually believe that? Of course they can train you to do it. And they should. These companies want to be here and they want all the protections of being in America. So, they don't have to worry about a military strike. They don't have to worry about their personal safety. They have all these freedoms that they wouldn't have in another country. They get to keep tons of their money that they wouldn't be able to keep in Europe. And then they turn around and they offer nothing in return. They insult Americans. They say we're stupid. They say we're lazy. They say they can't train us. And to me, you actually have a responsibility to go and to train people to do these jobs and to bring them in. And if you're not willing to do it, then I don't know why we're helping you in any way, shape, or form. Like Amazon has tons of federal contracts. If they don't want to train Americans, then we should cut them off of the federal contracts. That's just how you deal with this. We should demand that these companies are actually patriotic and they're loyal to America. And if they don't want to be, then no benefits. And if China wants to come, or let's say China wants to take some action against you in their country, I don't think the American government should help you. I'm good with it. Yeah. You don't want to help us and train Americans, then that's not my problem. Now, sometimes they'll say that American schools suck. And, there's some truth to this. I think a lot of our government schools are just low quality and focused on teaching kids how many genders there are versus just like math. And maybe they should combine the two to make these teachers happy. But if we could just focus on actual, reading, writing, arithmetic, learning to analyze information, I don't even need, and I'll just be honest with you, I have zero desire to tell kids how to think about anything. I want them to be able to analyze information and come up with their own views on things. Just wonderfully, whatever that is. Maybe they turn out to be a bunch of liberals. Okay, that's fine. I want you to be able to go and make the analysis yourself so that you're an independent thinker. It's not my business. It is not my, I would never want to force kids to go into a particular direction. I just want them to have the skills to be able to analyze information and make conscious, knowledgeable decisions about things. So having said all of that, if our schools are really bad, then these companies should go in and help improve them. We have all these tech companies in Utah. If you're going to tell me that you can't get the talent, why don't you send your workers to go and teach at some of the high schools? Look, is there something holding you back? Is there a reason why Ancestry can't send some of its employees to local high schools to train them on something that would be a good skill for them to learn, maybe open their eyes to something that Ancestry does so they can get future employees. Just imagine the loyalty you would get from those employees because they're like, wow, they came to my high school. I got to learn something new. I never knew that I wanted to do that. And they came and they showed me this, and now I do. And I just think there'd be so many benefits to that, but they don't want to do it. Instead, they just want to import people who have no loyalty to the country at all. Okay. What I said, so anyway, in my tweet, I said, what we lack is leaders who understand that we need to invest in our own people and develop our talent. A 50% reduction means you don't understand the problem. I'm happy to talk to Scott about this, but like I said, this is a red line for me. My ballot will be blank for anyone that supports importing foreign labor to steal American jobs and suppress our wages. So anyway, Scott has agreed to come on the show on Monday, and we will talk about this. I'm open to talking to him because I think here there may be something here, right? We should. I'm open to at least talking to him. Let's see. We've got. So Bad Ideas agrees. Jensen says, I'm a CD4 delegate. Do not want Kennedy. Oh, okay, good. The Fine Groiper. What's a Groiper? Delegate CD42. Okay, great. I'm glad you're here. I don't know what a Groiper is, though. I keep hearing the term. 79. Jensen says 79 Bad Ideas has me blocked. And then Bad Idea says, do I? 1 second. Oh, looks like, hey, we got to unblock here. It's pretty cool. Okay. Marsgate says it's the Crown Royals become the new corporations. Yeah, seriously. Anyway, it's just, this is an issue we really need to get a handle on. The actual number, we need a complete immigration freeze in the US, just a moratorium. There's way too many people, way too many foreigners here. And the disadvantage of that is that people that immigrate are not able to assimilate. And what I mean is this. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents are obviously immigrants. And we grew up in a overwhelming majority white neighborhood. So I was looking in the 90s, Illinois was actually 90% white. So, and that played out. Most of our neighbors were basically all white, like everybody. And so I was in Boy Scouts. I was the only non-white kid in the Boy Scouts. Everything I did was like that. But I think the benefit of that was that we were really the only immigrants in that neighborhood, right? And there were some other ones I knew in different neighborhoods in the area, but we were dispersed enough that it meant that you were able to assimilate into American culture. So now if you go, what I think is interesting, if you go and you meet a lot of the Indian kids that I grew up with, they're actually married to white people. And I think that's the impact of this. You can kind of see there was full assimilation. And I'm not saying you have to marry a white person or anything like that. I'm just saying that you can kind of see evidence of that assimilation in terms of where they are today and what that looks like. And I think that you have to be around people that are not just all kids of immigrants in order to really assimilate into American culture. Otherwise, you're getting this kind of hodgepodge mix and it doesn't work. And I think we're heading in that direction. Utah, I think, still is pretty high in terms of that multi-generational American kind of majority. But those are the official figures. Who knows what the real ones look like? And we want to make it so that people are, if they come here, they are assimilating. It's just my view that at this point, we've had such a flood of immigrants that the only way to get to that is by a complete moratorium. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bad idea. So exactly this. My support for immigration halts after we can no longer properly assimilate. Yeah, that's the point. And we can't right now. Here it's majority white. So like I live in Riverton. I think I'm the only, there might be another family that moved in that's Hispanic here, but it's overwhelmingly white. But I think here you could have someone come in and they can assimilate, right? It wouldn't be very hard. But you go to California, like, oh, holy hell, it's majority not white. And you'll have some people that are obvious that they, like my sister, she was born here, brought up here. So I think that you could actually, like, you can be with her kids and you're more you can get the assimilation. Kids of immigrants get assimilation there because she's like once removed from the immigrant piece of it. But a lot of it's so many immigrants everywhere. I just don't know how anyone assimilates in California. And then I think you'll find that in all the big cities now, they're all like that. And the reason I say this though is because American culture is the best culture in the world, and people keep trying to insult it and say it's not. But the reality is that the feats and all the things you see in America are a result of a culture that's different. And yeah, American culture has obviously changed over time. I'm sure it's assimilated other cultures into it. It's a living, breathing thing. But the reality is that it is different than every other culture in the world. And that's something we want to keep. And we want to keep it unique. And we want to keep it different. But we also want it to be common across the board. And I think that's what's gone, right? Is I don't know that we have a common culture anymore. I've been kind of feeling a little lost on that. Just, like, what does it even mean today? I mean, does everybody in America think our Constitution is great? And I guess you don't have to all agree on it, but still, like, is there at least a broad majority that think, yeah, we have the best Constitution in the world? The Declaration of Independence is an amazing document. What the revolutionary generation went through is insane when you think about it. They went up against the most powerful empire in the world, and they won. Anyway, that's my point. Marsgate says, I think you are spot on to the points of assimilation. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about FISA 702. Speaking of the Constitution. So FISA 702 is coming up for renewal. I think they're going to vote on it this week. It does not require the federal government to get a warrant before looking at communications that they collect from Americans that is allegedly done incidentally to their collection of data from foreigners, right? So, and this is a problem because our Constitution says they need a warrant in order to search your information. And they have this statutory exemption. It goes through a secret FISA court. So we don't even know what's going on in that court. You have to have a security clearance to be able to look at it. And it's been abused. We know it's been abused. So when Trump ran the first time, it was the FISA court that is where they did all of their little games in order to start Russiagate. Now they've made some reforms since then, but they haven't done the critical reform of requiring a warrant for them to search any information that they have about Americans in their FISA database. So let me show you Celeste Malloy's position on FISA. Okay, let's see here.
Congress has to make a decision about reauthorizing one of the most important intelligence tools we have, FISA Section 702. Today I'll explain what that is, how it works, and what a reauthorization will mean for American citizens. FISA, or the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is a law that established guidelines for surveillance of foreign agents. Section 702 of FISA is a provision within the law that allows the U.S. to collect information on non-citizens located outside of the United States who are believed to have information related to national security. FISA helps operations like the capture of President Maduro in Venezuela and the rescue of the U.S. weapons systems operator in Iran recently. However, as technology expands and our world becomes more interconnected, it's not uncommon for U.S. citizens' information to get caught up in these investigations as incidental information. In the past, this program has been controversial, particularly because of how the FBI used it. The FBI has a domestic mission, not...
Okay, let me just say something here. To say that the program has been controversial is just so dishonest. It was abused against Trump when he was doing his first campaign. They used FISA and the secret FISA court, which is in DC, to do all of the stuff in order to gin up the Russiagate BS. So for her to say it's controversial, it's not controversial. It's actually, we have legitimate, real concerns based on things that have happened in the past. And they need to be fixed. And they haven't fixed them. I'm finding this frustrating because I can't believe, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, Trump is the one demanding this just 18-month extension. I don't understand why he is not demanding reforms at this point. There's something, he was like the biggest victim of this. And actually not even just him, there were people around him that ended up getting caught up in this and having tons of legal fees to defend themselves against BS cases and lawfare that went against them. This program needs to be reformed. It's an actual violation of our constitutional rights for them to just be rifling through information under the guise of, oh, we're trying to prevent terrorism. I'm fine with them trying to prevent terrorism. I don't know that there's any evidence that FISA has actually helped them do it. She made a claim in here about how it helped them find the weapons officer in Iran. I don't even know if that's true. Where's the evidence of that? How does she know that?
Not a foreign one. And when the FBI was querying this database, it raised concerns about whether proper safeguards for Americans were being followed. 2 years ago, in response to those concerns, we passed 56 important reforms to FISA. The most significant change.
So I guess we're supposed to get excited. There are 56 reforms, guys, but they didn't add a requirement for a warrant. But you got to be all excited about the other 56, just numbers, right? Oh, 56, we got 56 reforms. Here's $1 billion for the Great Salt Lake. No details, nothing. Okay, there we go.
As the program has ever seen. Today, any query involving a U.S. person requires documented justification and approval. 100% of those requests are audited, and compliance rates are now at 99%, up from 80% before our reforms. 90% of the people who previously had access to this information no longer have access today. They can't even do a query. And there's oversight at every level from all three branches of government, including the House Intelligence Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. In other words, this is not the same program it was 5 or 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago. President Trump has called for a reauthorization of FISA 702 for an additional 18 months. With rising tensions and instability in places like Iran, it's especially important that our intelligence community has the necessary tools to ensure our national security.
You know, I gotta be honest with you. So she just, again, it's this list of, it's, if you notice, the statistics, we have no way to verify any of them because there's no transparency around this. She says that there's oversight by the three branches. Okay, and again, you didn't require them to get a warrant to go and search the information of Americans. So the constitutional violation continues. It just keeps on happening, even if you have these protections in place. She says 100% of the queries are audited. Okay, and does anyone think that means they're going to catch all the problems or that all of this is legitimate? They don't have to get a warrant. So what are you auditing for? Just that they had a good justification for using a program that's supposed to be to get communications about foreigners to then spy on Americans. That's the whole point. They can do warrantless surveillance of Americans through this program. They've done it. They've abused it.
I look forward to seeing the reauthorization proposal when it reaches the House floor, and I'll work with my colleagues to ensure that we provide our intel agencies with the clarity and authority they need while maintaining strong protections for Americans' civil liberties. But it's important to remember, as you see these debates over the next couple of weeks, that FISA is about dealing with foreigners outside of the United States. We made changes to make sure the FBI, a domestic agency, wasn't using incidental information that they've gathered against U.S. citizens inside the United States. And I'll keep you posted as this develops.
Yeah, so she hasn't actually fixed the program. She hasn't, and I'll just add, when the last time this came up for reauthorization, there was a an amendment made to require a warrant to go and search through and rifle through Americans' communications. Because if you could, for example, let's come up with an example, right? Like, let's say I have an uncle who lives in India. I could be communicating with him just innocuously. They catch it up in a FISA thing. It goes into their database. They start searching through my stuff. That's a violation of my rights. You have no reasonable cause to even look through anything of mine. You didn't get a warrant. And we have those protections in place what the Constitution requires it, and they're violating it. And I'm wondering if one reason why she's okay with it is that they exempted themselves from the program. So let me see if I can find this. Oh, I did it again. There was a good thing that I'll try to see if I can find it for next time. But it was Massey talking about how Congress exempted themselves from FISA. So they can search my communications, I guess, but they can't do Congress's unless they get permission from them, which just seems problematic to me. That's not my kind of thing, you know. Give me a second. Maybe it was here. Notifications. Oh, here. Okay, here. I think what it is that they have to get notified. So there's this list of the reforms they did. So Section 103 requires the FBI director, in the event the FBI conducts a query of the name or other personally identifying information of a member of Congress, to notify both that member of Congress and congressional leadership. Section 103 allows a temporary exception if such notification would impede an ongoing national security or law enforcement investigation. Well, that's nice, but then what about regular Americans? Like, do I get notification if you decide you're just going to search my info through there? Does anybody else get notification, or just Congress? These guys, you know, part of what frustrates me about Congress generally is they make all sorts of special rules for themselves because they think they should be exempted from all the rules they create for us. They're not really. They're basically making this a world where they can. So again, they can search through my information without a warrant. They can search through all of your information without a warrant. But if they search Celeste's information, they have to go and notify her. Tell me, does that make any sense to anybody? Why wouldn't the requirement be you have to get a warrant? And that way you're just not rifling through Americans' information for no reason at all. Okay, well, so then the last time this came up, there was an amendment made to require a warrant when they search any information of Americans, again, that's incidentally picked up through the FISA 702 program. It failed. When it failed, credit where it's due, John Curtis actually voted against the reauthorization. He was in the House at the time because it didn't have because it didn't have the warrant requirement. Celeste voted for it. Okay, so I mean, I'm not even sure what the philosophy here is, because look, I think John Curtis is a Democrat, but I guess maybe on civil liberties, he's actually more of a traditional Democrat. Right? Which I appreciate, because the old-fashioned Democrat was actually pro free speech, pro, protecting civil liberties. I'm good with that. Celeste is like, I don't know, she's definitely not a Republican if you look at her voting record. I'm not even sure she's a Democrat. It's more of just kind of like a swampy person who will just go with whatever leadership tells her. And I get it. They're going to use the justification that Trump has asked for this. Well, I would like Congress to actually be a little bit more independent and to go for higher standards than what Trump requests. They're using Iran as a justification, if you notice. So, we have all these threats because of Iran. I do not care. Okay, it's up for reauthorization now. Look, if you need it in place right away, then go quickly. I don't know why this stuff takes so long anyway. Add the warrant requirement, pass it, send it to the Senate. Maybe Mike Lee can, while he's doing the SAVE Act stuff, he can do this too. Get this thing passed with the warrant requirement, and Trump can sign it. That should not be a justification for not trying to protect our constitutional rights in the FISA program. right? Like if there's a time pressure, then deal with that appropriately by continuing to protect our rights. Okay, here's I think I had something from Rand Paul on this issue. So this just came out a few days ago, April 9th. And Rand Paul. So, libertarians, they're kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes I agree with them. They're very open bordersy, which I don't like. But on civil liberties, a lot of times they're very good. So Rand Paul says, for years, intelligence agencies have abused FISA to search Americans' communications without a warrant. Exactly. My Fourth Amendment Restoration and Protection Act ends these backdoor searches once and for all. If the government wants your data, they should get a warrant. So this is how we fix it. Now is the time. It's up for reauthorization. That's when you use your leverage to make the changes. And let me just add, I think they're going to lose the majority. So why wouldn't you just do it right now when you have the majority? This is a positive thing that you can do to protect the rights of Americans. Okay, and then we also I have this one. This is this guy, Daniel Horowitz. And I think I like his podcast a lot. He does a very good job. So here we go.
FISA. So most conservatives and Republicans came to the conclusion after FISA was abused multiple times to spy on the Trump campaign that clearly it is not working the way it was promised. And clearly you should need a warrant to tap into that, to obtain a warrant before seeking to query the information of Americans caught up in foreign surveillance. So in 2023, we had consensus and bipartisan support in the House Judiciary Committee to do this, to require a warrant. Mike Johnson actually initially supported it. Trump calls him up and says, no, do it, clean reauthorization. They freaking spied on his own campaign, and this is what he does. So he reversed course and was literally the tie vote. He also reneged on his promise to pass Warren Davidson's amendment at the time to bar federal agencies from skirting the Fourth Amendment by purchasing information on Americans from private data companies. FISA.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. That second piece that he just talked about is also really critical because the federal government, they go and they buy the cell phone data, your location data, and now remember they use that for the January 6th people. So they're able to map it all out. And I do think we need to ban that. This is the thing that's been a little bit frustrating about Trump's second term, right? So there's a couple things. His first term was also frustrating. And I will be honest with you, I was hoping the second term would be better, and I think it started out a lot better. But it just seems like it's gotten a little bit chaotic, and it's devolving in a way that is not going to end well. So, on this FISA thing, I find it kind of frustrating. And what I was looking for is kind of a vision to maybe, this guy Daniel Horowitz talks about this, but allowing the red states to be more independent. And so the flip side is you also have to allow blue states to be more independent. And part of the reason to do this is that when a Democrat comes into office, that would give the opportunity for a state like Utah, which is, I guess, red, it's quote unquote red, to be able to put in additional protections and to stand in the way of the federal government if they start to overstep. So, you can think of different ways you could do this. You devolve more immigration enforcement or allow states to do more immigration enforcement than is currently allowed. And so that way, a place like Utah, I don't know if it happened or not, but we could theoretically crack down on illegal immigration here. So when the Democrats flood it, which they will, the next time that a Democrat comes into power, they will flood the country. It will be, we had 20 million under Biden. It will be hundreds of millions next time. Okay, all of those systems that were put into place under Biden are all still there. They're just, in hibernation, waiting to be turned on. The minute a Democrat wins the presidency, it will all be turned back on, and we will be flooded like you see in Spain right now. So allowing states to actually have heavier enforcement would mean that there's less incentive for illegals to come here, right? And so I think, and so even for everything you can think of, how do you take your state and strengthen it and give it more powers, like the federal government, devolve more of those powers down here, so that when a Democrat comes into power, our government can actually stand in the way of bad policy. So kind of like, if you think about it, liberal states all have sanctuary cities. I mean, we have one too. We have Salt Lake City. So, but there's not an equivalent of a conservative area that does like a sanctuary conservative area. And this would allow more of that. And so I would think like land issues, for example. I've heard Phil kind of talk about this and I like it. Moving jurisdiction to the states to do more stuff there of federal land, so not the ownership. So that means like a place like Colorado, which is governed by Democrats, they might turn it all into parks. Okay, well, that's the way for you to handle that, is to elect different people into office. But then in Utah, we might actually, that's an area where we might get more local control and development allowed than you would see in a place like Colorado. So just kind of, how do you protect yourself when a Democrat comes into power? Because I'm just telling you, the next time they come into power, I just think we're heading towards a situation that we may not be able to come back from. So we've already got 40 to 50 million illegals here. They claim a few million of them left. Okay, but they can all be replaced as soon as you get a Democrat into power. They will legalize them all. They'll make them citizens. And then what do? Well, the best thing you can do is you can make it hard for illegals to live in states, the red states, and help us kind of like strengthen them. Let's see here. Okay, we got a couple more comments before we go. So Nanny 8 says, agree about Trump 2.0. We need to trust our discernment because there's something wrong. Yeah, I agree. There's something weird. It's going a little off the rails. So I'm hoping that, and I'll just say this. I think it's really problematic the way he has attacked people that he has fired or whatever. And the reason I say that is because people won't want to work for you, right? This just isn't being done right, especially when they had 4 years in which to prepare for all of this. And it just seems they've done a lot of good stuff. So I don't want to act like they've done nothing. I'm not trying to blackpill, but just not enough. I expected more. I've been totally disappointed that they're allowing judicial supremacy. And I've talked about this before. Like, a district court is not co-equal to the president. So you're not required to listen to some batshit crazy liberal who says you have to let all the illegals stay. But it requires the president to stand up and say, you are not co-equal to me. Let me know when the Supreme Court says something, and then we're co-equal. So I don't actually have to listen to them. We'll figure out what to do at that point. Okay, we got one more. Caroline teaches math. I went to federal court on Thursday. Listening to the defense attorney argue for release from custody for the illegals was interesting. Huh. Well, that's their job, although I wonder who was paying for it. See, like, I got to be honest with you. I don't think we should pay for defense attorneys for illegals, even if they're criminals. Like, why do taxpayers have to pay for that? I think we should let George Soros and all the liberals pay for that instead. Because really, the solution is, if you don't want to be prosecuted for your crime in the U.S. and you're an illegal, go home. Bye-bye, GTFO. We don't want you here. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. This is the Goud Crowd. We are on every Monday from 5 to 7. Like I said, tune in next week. We'll have Scott Hatfield on. He's running for CD4, and we'll talk through immigration. We'll talk through the sexual harassment disclosure issue that we discussed today. And if you have other questions, if you're a CD4 delegate and you think of anything, feel free to message me. If you participate that day and you have a question, I'll try to, hopefully Mr. Producer will be here. We can do live calls and people can call in and ask questions if you want. Okay, and I'll see if there's any other CD4 candidates that want to come, because I know there's a couple other ones I have heard about. But you can listen to us on X on my handle, which is at Goud for Utah. You can also listen at the Main Street Media Utah handle, and on Rumble and YouTube with Main Street Media Utah, and at kmmu.org. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like and share the show so that we get more people to listen. And I will see you next week. Thank you.